All right, thank you so much for joining us today. We're here to talk about our awesome middle school adventures. My name is Bethany. I do the marketing communications here at Broadreach. So if you get our emails or follow us on social media, you're talking to me. And I'll let my other presenters introduce themselves as well.
Hey everyone, I'm Carly. I have been here at Broadreach for 13 is my 13th summer, I think. So it's been a little while, a teenager's worth of years at Broadreach. I've got two kids of my own that will be old enough to do their own Broadreach adventures in a couple of years, which I'm very excited about. And I'm happy to share about these middle school programs with you today.
I'm Katie. I am one of our enrollment support coordinators here at Broadreach. I've been with Broadreach now for going into my fourth summer. I was a student when I was in high school, and I've had the privilege of leading a couple of our middle school programs. So I'm really excited to speak with you all today.
Awesome. We have so many different perspectives and experiences represented here, so I'm excited to hear from you. I'll go ahead and start. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with Broadreach. So a little introduction. We run adventures for middle school and high school students. We've been around for over 30 years, and we specialize in trips focusing on scuba, sailing, marine biology, conservation, and veterinary medicine. I love our middle school programs. I think they're really special. Some things that are what makes them so special. They help students learn by doing, which I think is really great for this age group. Instead of kind of learning things in the classroom, you're really learning by doing. So instead of learning about what leadership is, you're kind of made leader of the day and you're living that out. Or instead of kind of learning about coral conservation in a book, you might be diving and seeing the corals underwater, observing what you see, and then talking about that with your marine biologist instructor. So that's, I think, something really cool. We also have small groups and focus on group dynamics, kind of creating a warm, welcoming environment. Our instructors are awesome. They're not only kind of experienced in the subject matter that they're teaching, whether that's dive instructors, what have you, but also have experience working with kids and love working with kids. It also just gives you a great first step towards moving further afield, maybe going into high school, becoming more independent. So we offer some additional support, but it is kind of a first step in the direction of more independent travel, things like that. So we'll be going over this a little bit more detail further on.
Great. So to go off of that, I think the Broadreach Middle School programs are really great. We have a lot of students that come from like a more traditional summer camp background, and this is kind of a next step because it's got some of those familiar summer camp components to it. But it's of course in a very different environment. The small group is something that I think is really important and is different than a lot of things that other students have done, that our students have done in the past. And obviously they're in a different country. All of our programs are outside of the US. And so they get to experience sometimes a different culture, a different environment than what they are used to. And in that challenge is where we really see growth come. We design our programs very intentionally around experiential learning. So it's different from being in a classroom and learning about something you might not be that excited about or learning about it as a concept. We get to do it and put our hands on what we're learning. The structure of our program also really focuses a lot on soft skills. I think this is actually probably the most valuable part, and what we hear from parents is maybe the most valuable part of our programs is that they are really at this special age of middle school be able to have some independence, some responsibilities during the program. They have to work together as a team. They're often living in small confined environments that they're not used to. And I think those are what really translate into the real world. They're getting outside of their bubble. They're around different types of students than maybe that they're used to in their school or even their summer camp. So a little bit of diversity in the group itself. And then again, the exposure to another culture, I think really broadens the worldview. There's no experience that is necessary for our program. So we can have these like challenges and these really positive, powerful, experiential learning like moments without having any experience needed beforehand. So
Thanks.
yeah.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about what middle school programs are available.
So here is a map with all of our 2025 program locations. The orange indicates all of our middle school programs. So you can see in there Bonaire, the Bahamas, and the Leeward and the Windward Islands.
All right,
So
now,
here's an overview.
sorry.
Here's an overview of each of our programs that we offer for middle school students. So we're going to dive into each of them. So we have our Caribbean live aboard voyages. So we have the 17-day and 12-day options. They're all based out of St. Martin. And students will get to live on a catamaran with 12 other students, typically 2 dive instructors and 1 skipper if it's a scuba program. And if it's a snorkel program, they'll have a skipper and a first mate. They'll have the opportunity to get some community service and some certifications in scuba diving and or sailing. And all along the way, we get to go explore a few different islands. We get to go explore the towns, go on a few hikes, and we'll do some small boat handling, water sports. So a lot of fun different things on these programs.
Um, these are our 2, we also have 2 land-based trips, Bahamas Island Wildlife Explorer and our Bonaire Coral Divers. Can you tell us a little bit about those, Katie?
Sure. So if boats aren't your thing, we've got you. So our Bahamas Island Wildlife Explorer program is great for students who are interested in working with animals. They get to stay in a villa on the island of Nassau, and we work at a conservation center. So lots of hands-on opportunities with animals, and we get to go kayaking and a couple of hikes and snorkels, and we get to go swimming just about every day. So that is a great option for your animal lover. And then we have our Bonaire Coral Divers, and this is great for students who are looking to advance their scuba skills. They do need to have their open water certification already, but they get to earn their coral conservation certification, and that's the only program that we offer that has that cert. So again, they get to stay in a villa here as well. Um, and they get to also go to a donkey sanctuary, which is always a highlight of this program.
I love seeing all the pictures of the donkeys. They ride around in a truck and feed them, I don't know, carrots or donkey food, but it's so cute. Okay, now that we've gone over kind of a brief highlight of our trips, we've kind of prepared some information about what the frequently asked questions we get from parents. Katie, can you talk us about supervision and staff since you've kind of been in that role as an instructor personally?
Sure. So each of our programs will have 2, sometimes 3 instructors. Since this is middle school, we are with our students at all times. So even when we're exploring the towns and hiking, we will be with our students as a group. Um, at least 1 instructor per trip will have advanced first aid training. That is a wilderness first responder certification, and that is about a week-long training they do before they join us in the summer. Most of our instructors, they typically range in their mid-20s, maybe later 20s, and all of our scuba instructors do follow PADI regulations. So, yeah.
Okay. Now, another question we get a lot of is where will we sleep? And a lot of anxiety about food and meals. We might have some picky eaters or some dietary restrictions. Can you talk a little bit about that, Katie?
Sure. So for our land-based programs, we get to stay in some beautiful villas on the beach. That picture right there is one of the views that we'll have this summer. So we'll stay in shared spaces in these villas, sharing rooms, and we'll have most of our meals here. And the students will actually be in charge of cooking with some guidance of the instructors. They'll be around for some supervision, but they'll get to make all of our meals for the group. And then as far as our boat-based programs, they'll be staying on a catamaran. There are cabins below deck, and they can stay there if they'd like, but most students typically use them to store their luggage and their belongings, and they'll sleep on the deck under the stars, which is always pretty magical, putting out like a sleeping pad and sleeping bag, sometimes a hammock. And they also will be cooking all of their meals on board. So they'll have a galley guide, and everything will be fully stocked, both land-based and boat-based, with all the provisions they'll need, and we can restock as needed throughout the program. So students really like cooking, so that's another skill they get to come away with. Sometimes they'll make their favorite meals at home, which is always cute to hear. So yeah.
Yeah, might be their first time cooking, so we're prepared for that. We have, like Katie mentioned, the galley guide and everything, and yeah, maybe you can ask them to prepare their favorite meal when they get back home. Okay, another big question we get is about travel to and from program, how flights work, how do they know what to bring? Can you talk about that, Carly?
For sure. Yeah, this is actually my background. I was a travel agent for 7 years before I started working at Broadreach. So something like close to 20 years in the travel focus world. So I love to talk about this. I know lots of airport codes. I'm happy to chat about all the ins and outs of traveling, and particularly with minors. We did just do a blog post recently, if you haven't seen it, about unaccompanied minor travel that I put together that I think is really helpful in understanding what that process looks like if you're not familiar with it. And again, I'm always happy to talk about specific situations with families on how to get their students to their program. The flights are the main cost that's not included in our program tuition, and we don't have specific required flights for any of our middle school programs. We try to keep it flexible because students are coming from lots of different places. There's no reason why you should have to connect from New York to Bonaire if there's a direct flight, right? It's much more convenient and less chance for delays and things like that if you can do a direct flight. So we provide a lot of guidance about how to book flights. We have a travel agency partner that we work with that's optional for families to use if they have questions. We of course collect all of each student's flight details, so we know exactly when to expect them. We're able to track delays or anything like that. You know, hopefully that doesn't happen, but we provide a lot of information and actually get a lot of good feedback from parents at the end of the summer about how well prepared they felt based on the resources that we provided about travel and lots of other things. So again, we're here to answer questions, but we also spend a lot of time designing and thinking about and providing information that's helpful so families feel confident about that component of their program, their students' program. Packing goes right along with that. I love a good packing list. And ours, I think, are super detailed, including links of suggestions for some particular things. A lot of it will be stuff that they have already. You know, we don't run like fancy programs or super high-tech programs in terms of things that students need to bring that they probably don't have already. But our packing lists are reviewed every year based on feedback from families, based on feedback from instructors, so that my most favorite thing when I'm traveling personally is that I have exactly what I need, not too much and not too little. We don't want them to wish they had something that they didn't have, or the vice versa, where they're dragging around all this stuff that they don't actually need. So that's always a like gold star I give myself when I'm traveling, if I've gotten the exact right amount of that stuff.
Yes, it's kind of a tightrope to walk.
It is. It is. Yeah.
All right, another big one is health and safety.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're worried about our child pretty much all the time, especially when they're not
Yeah.
around us.
I definitely, I started at Broadreach without kids, and now I've got a couple that are kind of increasingly out in the world. And so I understand this in a different way than I used to, but safety is something that is on the top of our importance lists all year round. I think it's important to consider that travel has inherent risks, like with most things. And so what our job is, and something we take very seriously, is managing those risks. There are a lot of different ways we do that. Katie talked a little bit about our staff qualifications and our supervision, which ties back into safety. Again, we have a really extensive medical form that we have each family fill out for their student before the summer that gets signed by a doctor. so that we understand each student's health situation, their medical situation, and how to best support them. We have pill packs that we send to families for students to use to manage their medication during the summer. It's optional to use it that way, but it's a nice way for students to kind of organize any medication that they're bringing along, and for the instructors to help kind of track who's taking what when and sign off on a nice little organized list. So we try to keep track of students' medications that way to help them. We have in our Caribbean programs a support boat that travels around with our fleet. I think this is an important piece of like safety and resources on our programs. That's where our leadership team is, that's right along with our boat. So if they need to take a student to a doctor, some of the things in the summertime that we see a lot of are ear infections, which are really common with scuba diving, minor like cuts and scrapes and rashes and things like that, that are again, like quite common with being on boats. We have a really, really great record in terms of safety over the last 30 years. That's something that we're really proud of. And it's not something that's just been a happy coincidence. We put a lot of thought into trying to keep our students as safe as possible, helping our instructors be prepared for different situations, having emergency action plans in place, knowing where all the clinics and hospitals and places where they are on the places where we are, so that we can keep everybody in one piece, as healthy as possible during our programs. It's very important. We wouldn't be here if we weren't able to do that successfully.
Absolutely. Kind of linked on that is communication with families. A lot of families want to know, like, if something happens, if there's an emergency, how will I get in touch with my student or vice versa. Can you talk a little bit about that, Carly?
Yeah, for sure. This is another thing I think that's shifted in my time here, as more and more students and then their parents are used to having constant communication with each other. We offer an opportunity to disconnect, which I think is increasingly valuable, especially for teenagers. So we do encourage them to travel with their phones if they have them during their travel days, and then we'll collect them when they arrive at our location. We always call families when the student gets to us to like make sure that the families know that we've gotten their student, they've gotten to the right people, and then all is well. And then we handle communication a few different ways during the program. So there's no Wi-Fi or anything. We'll hold on to the students' phones for them. But we do have the students take turns writing trip updates every day, which we post and send out to parents that are subscribed, so that you can read about what they're doing, usually see some pictures depending on their bandwidth, and sort of follow along and know what they're up to without talking to them directly all the time. We have 24/7 coverage here in our office, so that if you have an emergency, no matter the time of day in the summer, you can get in touch with us and we can put you in touch with your students or their instructors, and vice versa. They can always get in touch with us. So there is a clear line of communication. It will be managed by our office here so that we can help support our staff, help support students, and then you as families as well. So we'd like to be really transparent about this so that everybody knows kind of what that looks like. And again, we can answer questions if you've got particular scenarios that you're curious about.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things students are most anxious about, is not having their phone with them all the time, but actually, based on the feedback we get, say like 99.999% of them loved it and are surprised about how freeing it is to not have your phone constantly attached to you.
For sure.
All right. So I know especially middle school age parents are wondering, like, is my student ready for this? Is this kind of a trip right for them? Can you talk a little bit about what questions to ask or how to know if they're ready? Carly?
Yeah. A lot of our students I mentioned before will come from a more traditional summer camp program, or will have done something like this, but not necessarily all of them. A lot of them will have traveled internationally with their families before, and so they've got a little bit of an idea of what that kind of looks like. That's again not a requirement, and definitely not across the board that all of our students have done that before. I think the most important questions to ask are about openness to new experiences, adaptability to different environments. I think some students are more easygoing and happy to be like in something that feels a little bit weird. It's normal to be nervous. It's normal, especially for middle school students, to be like, what's it going to be like to live on a boat? Where am I going to go to the bathroom? How am I going to shower? I think talking through those things, and again, we provide a lot of resources so that families know what to expect beforehand, and we will happily talk about all the details about what all those things look like. But really just having a feel for how well your student would do in a situation that feels very different for them. We provide a lot of support for families so that we don't want any surprises for students to have along the way. They should know what to expect. I think also the excitement of learning is something that our students share, the interest in some adventure. So it's a really good opportunity for students to explore a passion that they might have that they don't necessarily get to dabble in school, or maybe their school friends don't share that same interest. And so being with other students from all over the US and other countries sometimes also is a really powerful bonding experience for our groups, that they have this shared experience, shared interest, shared excitement, and doing something new and different. So they don't have to be like star like classroom students or anything. It's not that kind of learning, but the interest in learning something new, maybe challenging themselves a little bit, I think is something that would show you that it would be a good fit for your student.
Yeah, I think that's something so cool, because I know for me, it's like maybe until I got to college, I didn't get to really meet a lot of people that were interested in some of the same things that I am. So it's a cool opportunity. All right, I'm going to open things up for a Q&A. We've got a Q&A box. We also had a bunch of questions that were submitted from some of us who maybe weren't able to attend live. So I'll get started with those. If you have any questions, you can type those in the meantime. Also wanted to let you know, as a thank you for joining us and registering today, we do have a special promo to save $200 on any of our 2025 trips with the code EXPLORE25. If you are interested, if you have further questions, feel free to reach out to us. I put Carly and Katie's emails there. You can also reach out to brhq@gobroadreach.com or give us a call. We love talking to families and students about our trips and answering any questions that you have. So it doesn't stop here if you have other questions. Let me dive into, sorry, pun not intended, to some of the questions that were pre-submitted. Yeah. We had one about a lot of kind of scuba related ones. How old do you need to be to go on a dive trip? So we do accept students 12 and up on our diving programs. So middle schoolers should be within that range. Another question, which is another frequently asked question about how deep do students go diving? So we do follow all the PADI standards regarding dive safety. We try to be even a little bit more conservative with that. So students who are under 15 are limited to a maximum depth of 60 feet, I believe, if they're getting open water certified. So we do respect that. And even on any Broadreach program, any student, the maximum depth that they would go is 100 feet. But for middle schoolers, they're limited a bit more than that. We had another question. Do teens need to be certified or get certified to dive shallow waters, particularly in our marine biology programs? I think we actually have two kind of marine biology focused programs for middle schoolers. One is our Bonaire Coral Divers. So for that program, they would need to be open water certified, or the equivalent of open water. But for our Intro to Marine Bio trip, which is a Caribbean-based program, they do not need to be certified already. So they'll get all their certifications and everything there.
Can I jump in really quick? There's one thing that
Yeah.
I think that we didn't mention that is a frequently asked question based on our grade organization. Our middle school programs are open to students who have just finished 6th, 7th, or 8th grade before the summer. So we do it by the grade that they're in right now, not the grade that they're going to be in the fall. That's on purpose. We don't mix students who are going into high school with students who have already experienced high school. And so it's a really nice narrow age window that they should be familiar with before joining. And it's tricky because I know lots of different camps organize that in different ways, but for our intents and purposes, middle school is finishing 6th, 7th, or 8th grade before the summer. I don't think
thank you.
that, but
Thank you so much for bringing that up. Yeah, that it's a question we get a lot, or even we don't get the question because people just, I think a lot of camps do it based on the grade that they're going into. So,
Yeah.
all right, I don't see any other questions now in the chat. So please feel free to reach out to us if you think of something later, or if you watch this later with your student and think of other questions, we're happy to help. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.